Herndon, Virginia, a quiet suburb outside Washington, D.C. A pediatric ICU nurse left for work every morning before dawn. She tucked her 4-year-old daughter in every night. She trusted the woman living in her home, and she had no idea that trust was the weapon being used to kill her. That morning, while Christine Banfield lay dying in her own bedroom, stabbed multiple times, her husband Brendan was at a McDonald's around the corner, getting breakfast. He had been there the whole time, and when police arrived at the scene, they found him kneeling over his wife's body, one hand on her neck, telling them he'd come home and found a stranger attacking her. He wasn't grieving, he was managing, and it took investigators nearly 2 years to prove it. Brendan Banfield was 40 years old. He was a former IRS special agent, a federal law enforcement officer trained to investigate financial crimes, and a man who understood better than most on how to build a cover story and make it hold. Christine Banfield was 37. She was a pediatric intensive care unit nurse, and by every account, she was devoted, selfless, and a woman who spent her nights caring for critically ill children and her mornings making sure her daughter was tucked in before she left. They lived in an affluent suburb of Washington, D.C., and they had a 4-year-old daughter named Valerie. And in 2021, they hired a Brazilian au pair named Juliana Perez Magalhães to help care for her. She was 21 years old when she moved into their home. By August 2022, 6 months later, Brendan Banfield was sleeping with her. And by February 2023, he had a plan. Brendan Banfield did not want a divorce. A divorce meant Christine would get more money than he would. It meant a custody battle over Valerie, and it meant losing the life he had built. So he told Juliana he wanted to marry her, that he wanted children with her, and to do that, he needed to get rid of Christine. Not leave her, but get rid of her. But he couldn't just kill his wife, he needed someone to blame. So he built a trap, and he needed a stranger to walk into it. He went on to Fetish, a website for the BDSM and fetish community. He used Christine's own laptop to create a fake profile for her, and he named the account Anastasia9. The profile described Christine as a woman looking to act out a violent sexual fantasy in her home with a stranger, someone who would not stop no matter what she said. He spent a month catfishing as his own wife. And then Joseph Ryan responded. Joseph Ryan was 39 years old, and he had no idea who Christine Banfield was. He had never been to Herndon, Virginia. He had no connection to the Banfield family whatsoever. He was a stranger who responded to a profile, believing he was communicating with a consenting adult who wanted exactly what the profile described. Banfield, posing as Christine, gave Ryan specific instructions. He told him to bring a knife as part of the fantasy, told him the woman might scream, but not to stop, told him exactly which door to use and what time to arrive. Joseph Ryan followed every instruction. He thought he was walking into a consensual encounter, but in reality, he was walking into an ambush, and he brought the murder weapon himself. The morning of February 24th, 2023, Juliana was supposed to take Valerie, the 4-year-old, to the National Zoo. Instead, she waited. An unfamiliar SUV pulled into the driveway, and she called Brendan. He was already at the McDonald's around the corner. He told her to signal him when Ryan was inside. She did. So when Joseph Ryan walked into the Banfield home, Brendan shot him in the head. Then he turned to Christine, his wife, the mother of his child, the woman sleeping in her own bedroom, and stabbed her repeatedly with the knife Ryan had brought. Christine was not part of any fantasy. She had never been on Fetish. She never consented to anything that happened in that room. She was murdered in her own bed. When the au pair saw Ryan still moving, she fired a second shot at point-blank range. Then Brendan went back to McDonald's. He waited, and he called 911. He told them he had come home and found a man raping and attacking his wife, and that he had shot the intruder in self-defense. Before police arrived, Brendan Banfield staged the scene. He opened his gun safe to make it look like he had grabbed the weapon spontaneously, as any panicked husband would. He poured some of Christine's blood onto his own clothing, to look like a man who had tried to save his wife. He carefully placed Christine's eyeglasses in a specific position neatly, deliberately, despite the violence that had just occurred in that room. He left Valerie in the basement. The 4-year-old was alone downstairs while her mother lay dying upstairs. Brendan Banfield staged a crime scene with his daughter in the house. Then he called 911 and started crying. Prosecutors called the scene neat. Suspiciously neat. The kind of neat that doesn't happen in a genuine home invasion, but does happen when someone has time to arrange things. And there was one more detail police noticed immediately. Christine's eyeglasses was placed too carefully, too deliberately. No panicked husband arranges his dying wife's glasses. That detail would haunt the defense for the rest of the trial. For 8 months, Brendan Banfield walked free. He maintained his story, he buried his wife, he kept Valerie, and he continued living in the house where Christine was killed. And then in October 2023, police arrested Juliana Perez Magalhaes. She was initially charged with second-degree murder. And then she started talking. Juliana gave investigators a detailed account of everything: the affair, the plan, the FetLife profile, the morning of February 24th. She described watching Brendan stab Christine, and she admitted to firing the second shot into Joseph Ryan. She told them Brendan had told her he needed to get rid of his wife, that he wanted to marry her, and that a divorce would cost him too much. She provided evidence, text messages, digital records, and a corroborating account that matched the physical evidence in nearly every detail. In exchange for her cooperation, she pleaded guilty to manslaughter. Nearly a year after Juliana's arrest, investigators pulled Brendan Banfield over in a traffic stop in Fairfax County. He was charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder. Brendan Banfield's trial began January 2026, nearly 3 years after the murders. He pleaded not guilty. His defense argued Juliana was the real mastermind, that she had access to every device in the home and could have created the FetLife profile herself. But prosecutors had something the defense couldn't explain away: a framed photo submitted into evidence, found on the nightstand in the Banfield master bedroom. A photo of Brendan and Juliana together, in Christine's bedroom, on Christine's nightstand. Digital forensic evidence tied the FetLife account to activity on Brendan's own devices. Records showed the account had been created and managed from inside the Banfield home and consistent with Brendan's access and usage patterns. Juliana testified in detail. She told jurors Brendan had told her during the planning she would have more money than I would in a divorce and that he wanted full custody of Valerie. The jury deliberated. They convicted Brendan Banfield of 2 counts of aggravated murder, 1 firearms charge, and child endangerment, for leaving his 4-year-old daughter in the basement during the murders. June 5, 2026. Fairfax County Circuit Court. Before Judge Penny Ascaret handed down the sentence, Christine's older sister Danielle Hawker stood and addressed the court. She talked about growing up alongside her sister, chasing fireflies, sleeping next to each other in sleeping bags on the floor. Since losing her, she said, those same memories have changed. They're no longer just joyful, but layered with grief. Each one a reminder of both how much I had and how much was taken. Joseph Ryan's mother, Deirdre Fisher, also addressed the court. She described the moment she received the call informing her that her son had been killed. When he gave me the horrible news that my baby had been murdered, she said, and could not finish the sentence. Joseph Ryan was lured to a stranger's home. He followed every instruction he was given and had no idea he was the plan. His mother had to bury him anyway. Then Brendan Banfield addressed the court. He spoke for 10 minutes. He did not apologize. He did not express remorse. He told the judge he loved Christine, that their marriage, despite his multiple affairs, worked for us, and that he never intended to leave her. He told the court, I was found guilty of a crime that I did not commit. It is actually impossible to have committed the crime. He said the legal system had failed not just him, but Christine, his daughter Valerie, his family. He invoked Christine's name as a shield. The woman he stabbed. The woman whose blood he poured on his own clothes. The woman whose glasses he arranged neatly while their daughter sat alone in the basement. He stood in that courtroom and used her name to proclaim his innocence. Judge Penny Ascaret was unmoved. She looked at Brendan Banfield and she told him what she saw. The disregard of the life of your wife, someone you supposedly loved, is almost unfathomable. She said his scheme involved luring a completely innocent man into your deadly trap, continuing on after the murders without a care, and not once, thinking of the impact on his 4-year-old daughter. Brendan Banfield took everything from her, the judge said. She called his crimes a reflection of pure evil and cited his total lack of remorse. And she handed down the mandatory sentence: life in prison, without parole. Consecutive sentences added for the firearms charge and child endangerment. He will die in prison. Juliana Perez Magalhaes was sentenced to 10 years. She watched Brendan stab Christine, and she fired the second shot into Joseph Ryan. She lived in that house, in that family, knowing what was coming, and she let it happen. 10 years. Brendan Banfield gets life. Joseph Ryan gets a grave. Christine Banfield gets a memory. And Valerie, the 4-year-old who was in the basement while her mother was being murdered upstairs. She grows up without either parent. Her mother taken from her. Her father the one who took her. Judge Ascaret said Brendan Banfield took everything from his daughter. He had no reaction to that either. There is a life sentence here. There is a man who will die in prison. And somewhere, a little girl named Valerie is growing up in a world her father destroyed, trying to understand something no child should ever have to understand. There is no closure. There never is. No closure.